Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg. The Batmobile had buzzed his whip, and the Joker got away. Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg. The Batmobile had buzzed his wheel, and the Joker got away. Ooh, 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 ooh. Merry Christmas. All right, everybody, welcome. Good day. Welcome to the JB show on RBN. This is going to be a Christmas Day special. Wait, am I okay? I think I'm good. All right. So good to see all of you here today. Yes, I got the windows open. Got the light shining in. So good to see all of you guys here. Typically, I'm always live on Sundays, but today, being a special day that it is, I actually wanted to be live with you guys today. And so, welcome. I know a lot of people are either spending time with their families or they may not be with family right now. Some people may celebrate, some people may not celebrate, but whatever, it's good to see you as always. Now, just to let you guys know that I do stream every single Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. I also have my own channel called the JB Font channel. If you guys would like to, you guys can also go over there and subscribe if you'd like to hear more content from me. But yes, I am here and I am ready to get to this reaction. But before I do that, as per usual, I like to go into the chat and say my greetings and hellos to every single person who is in here, who's watching, because we're all family, right? All right, so let's get to the first comment in the chat. Says John Tebe, reading about Kwanzaa, says Kwanzaa is an African-American and Pan-African holiday which celebrates family, community, and culture. It was created in 1966 by Dr. Molana Karenga, a professor of African studies. This person says Kwanzaa, a 7-day festival, begins on December 26th and ends on January 1st. It joins communitarian values and practices of continental African and African American culture. During the holiday, families and communities organize activities around the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles, Umoja, unity. Okay, this one's going to be hard. Let me see. Kuji Chakulia, self-determination. Let me see. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Ujama, cooperative economics. Nia, purpose. Umba, creativity. And Imani, faith. Participants also celebrate with feasts. Karamo. Let me see. Music, dance, poetry, narratives. And to end the holiday with a dedicated reflection and recommitment to the 7 principles and other central cultural values. And also, thank you for the super chat saying, not sure about how these work, trying to get a little learning about Kwanzaa. Hope everyone's having a great day. Merry, love. Thank you so very much. Thank you for that. Appreciate it very much. And also, welcome. I'm not sure if I ever seen you here on RBN, but welcome as well. We also have Uncle Warren in the chat saying, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Yo, I have to say this. I love when Latine people, when they have a thick accent and they say Merry Christmas, they say Merry Christmas. It's so cool because it's like, I just like the way it sounds. They probably look at me like, oh, he's so cute trying to speak Spanish when people like me say Feliz Navidad, you know. They're probably like, ah, JB, you're so cute. So I just like to say that, when we exchange it in, our mother tongue or languages, I think it's really cool. So, but I do try to say it more with the correct pronunciation, but I got a lot to learn. So, but it's also good. It's all good and it's all love. So it's good to see all of you here. John Chaos is in the chat saying, hello, all. John says, JB, if y'all not heard yet, Bro Jobs, A Very Deathcore Christmas, probably the funniest Xmas album I've heard just out of all this year. Bro Job. Oh, you. Feral Cat, so good to see you also in the chat. So good to see you. All right, we got Ogre in the chat saying happy Krampus. Yes, good to see you. Angela Sangster says, Merry Christmas all. Sweary Fairy Bestie is in said, Merry Crispiness Bestie. Hope you're warm enough. Yes, I am. I have on my red thermals. Red thermals. Red thermals. Clap, 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 clap your hands. To the left. Take it back now, y'all. One hop this time. All right. Let's see. Lenin fought for Ukrainian independence says, broke off my toxic family. Wow. Wow. That's deep. I hope that they take this to heart and notice these traits and try to readjust so that they can have you back in their lives. Also, nice to have you. Oh, we have Oz in the chat. Good to see you, Oz. He's in the chat. Good to see you. Say, hey, everybody. We have Jenna joining us saying, Merry Christmas, JB. Merry Christmas, Jenna. All right. Net Rando says, happy holidays. Peace and prosperity to all. Good to see you. Austin is in the chat saying, Merry Christmas, y'all. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. All right. Iman's in the chat. Says, hello, Merry Christmas. From Yemen, ye love you. Good to see you as well. Let's see. Who else is in the chat we didn't get to say hello to? Oh, we got Old Man Barker. All right, saying Merry Christmas. Jessica saying Merry Christmas. All right. Man, I should have had me a cup of hot cocoa to start this off with, but it's okay. It's all right. We shall proceed. Terry Connolly is in the chat saying happy holidays, fam. Joe OWS says we've been having 45-mile-per-hour winds coming off the Great Lakes on Mackinac Island. I tried to fly a kite. Last I saw it headed towards Toronto. Any piece from Canada? You got the gift of a free kite. Oh, man. Oh, man. Woo. Those winds, man. Those winds cut right through you. All right. We have Stony says, also freezing in Florida. With you, JB. Yeah. What's the temperature here? Wait, hang on. Do I have the temperature on? Yeah, it's 42 right now. Let's see. R.I.P. Shireen Abdul Akala says Jesus was Palestinian. That he was. Yeah. I dang go ate my baby. So good to see you again. Says Merry Happy Shana Kwanzaa. You trying to put all the words together. All right. Bob K is also in the chat saying Merry Xmas, y'all. All right. Bling Girl is in the chat with trees, stars, and happy faces. All right. Goth Cactus is in the chat saying happy holiday season, everyone. All right. Who else do we have? Do we have anybody else brand new in the chat? All right. We have Pachcorone saying Merry Christmas to you, JB, and everybody. So good to see you. Matt John in the chat saying Merry Christmas. John to Emily, good to see you, homie. My rainbow homie saying hi, everyone. All right. We have LB in the chat saying Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, bro. All right. John Small saying a Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, all right. Who else? Who else? Who else? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. It's Christmas. Let's go. All right. We have David Martin says, when is it for the churches to become mouthpiece for the CIA and state on Ukraine? Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Juanita says, Merry Christmas, everyone, from New Brunswick, Canada. Nice to have you, Juanita. All right, good to have you. Lester is in the chat saying, peace and love to all at RBN from California. Peace and love to you too. All right. It's so good to see all these beautiful people in here. All right, Kaya. Kaya, I see you, Kaya, says Merry Christmas, beautiful people. All right. Arthur is in the chat saying Merry Christmas. One from the Netherlands. All right, good to see you from the Netherlands. Great. We have Last 66 saying wish happy Christmas to all at RBN. Awesome, awesome. So much love among friends, says Eugene, Oregon. Check in. Merry Christmas. All right. Eugene, Oregon. Omar Rona is also up in his house today saying Merry Christmas, everyone. All right. We are good. And we have Beta Virus. Beta Virus says happy holidays. All right. Let me check on Rockfin. Let's see if there's anybody on the rock, on the Rizzock, on the Rizzy Rock coming in this morning, afternoon, and evening. Was the morning, it's the afternoon, it's the evening somewhere, right? All right, let's check in. Let me share my screen real quick just so that we can see the people. All right. We love the people and the people don't stop. All right, we have Fred Edward up in the rock saying a special reaction about Christmas, or has Christmas become sentient? Ah, Laura Baza says Feliz Navidad, JB. Feliz Navidad to you. Hope you're staying warm and doing well. I am. I am. So good to see you. Yes, baby. All right. Now, oh, Mr. JR says, ho, 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 my friends. JB, you rock. Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you so very much. That means so much to me. Okay. All right. I think we got past those. If there's anybody who I've gotten to yet, I do apologize, but good to see all of you here today. Now, the Civil Rights era. The Civil Rights era was pivotal in a lot of our lives, especially those of us who may be Black, but not just those of us who are Black, because anybody of any race, ethnicity, or any other type of identity, because really what it brought about was more of an awareness of the plight of those of us who are Black and Indigenous within this country. And it also helped open the door for the way for many people who are immigrants from other countries to come in, looking for a better life somewhere. Unfortunately, sometimes that looking for a better life is a result of US imperialism. We got to acknowledge that. And so the civil rights era was a pivotal role in really opening the way for a lot of us. It was opening the way for people like myself and my brothers being the first generation in our family to have been born with full rights in this country. With that being said, there was a discussion that was held. And this discussion was held in 1963. We're approaching 2023. But really, in 1 week from today, it will be 2023. So this discussion was held 60 years ago. And as I watch this program, which I'll be showing to you very shortly, and I'll also be reacting to, and I'll be pausing in intervals in order to give my commentary to also, and also to get some of your comments about what was just said as well. Because this is really a two-way conversation between us. Is that everything that was said is extremely relevant to today. And it's kind of like the old saying that goes, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We see changes, especially technologically, we've seen changes. We also see a lot of parallels, similarities, rhyming when it comes to the social and the socio-economic commentary of yesteryear as well as today. And so with that being said, when I saw this, I said, the audience needs to hear this. And I really wanted to bring this to the RBN audience. I could have did this on my channel, but I figured this is RBN, Revolutionary Blackout Network centric type of programming. And so that's one of the reasons why I decided to do this. So what am I talking about? So as you can tell from the thumbnail, there are some, I would like to call, more revolutionary minded men that actually have this conversation. And we are going to go to this video. And one of the things that I want to bring up was this video. It features James Forman, Whitney Young, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Roy Wilkins. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. And by the way, the link to this video is in the description below as well. I'm going to put on my headphones so I can hear. And you're going to find this very poignant. So let's begin. Hang on.
I have a terribly busy schedule to talk.
As a result of seeing this program.
Gentlemen, I certainly want to thank you for taking time out of a terribly busy schedule to talk with us this evening. I know that the entire country, and certainly the President of the United States and some congressmen, would like to know about the plans for a march on Washington. Mr. Wilkins, would you like to tell us what are the plans as of this date?
The plan is for a huge march to the Lincoln Memorial and a meeting there. On the way, what was described as a brief demonstration at the White House. But we hope to have this an outpouring of expression on the part of the people who wish Congress and the nation to know how they feel, how very deeply they feel about civil rights legislation. I think it's fair to say, wouldn't you say, Martin, that this is no attempt to blackjack anybody? We want to show how we feel.
Exactly. We are not going to Washington to intimidate any congressman or any senator. It will give a large number of people an opportunity to articulate their longings and aspirations for freedom, their desire to see meaningful, forthright civil rights legislation in this session of Congress. And of course, we also intend to arouse the conscience of the nation over the economic plight of the Negro 100 years after emancipation. And I think it can have a great impact. I think it will dramatize the issue. It will have educational value in that it will allow many people to see and understand the continued indignities and injustices which Negroes confront all over the nation.
All over the country. It has captured the imagination of hundreds of thousands of people. Now, we don't know how many of them will be marching to Washington, but a goodly number will. They feel keenly about this, and they want the seat of government. They want the American conscience to know how they feel.
You're aware that the president has cautioned that he would just as soon have the march postponed or not occur.
We see this as an all-inclusive demonstration of our belief in the president's program, and since it has been declared to be an orderly demonstration with a rally, at which time I hope to be one of the people who will speak in the interest of the Urban League toward preparing people for the new opportunities. At this level, we will be cooperating.
I think it's important that the march go off because there is legislation. Many people have gone to jail for the substance. That is, the lunch counter demonstrations throughout the South have to be sort of brought to some climax, and it could be done in this public accommodations bill, which is before the Congress. Then, of course, it just left the Delta, a lot of poor people over there, people who make $2.25 a day for 12 hours of work. And so some legislation has to come out of the Congress of the United States to deal with problems.
People like Agnes Myers, Roy, president of the board of the NAACP, and other white liberals and friends have cautioned against having a major demonstration for civil rights this summer. How do you white liberals and friends have?
And so some legislation has to come out of Congress of the United States to deal with the problems.
People like Agnes Myers, Roy, president of the board of the NAACP, and other white liberals and friends have cautioned against having a major demonstration for civil rights this summer. How do you?
You just said a number of white liberals have cautioned about having a major demonstration on civil rights. A number of white liberals have cautioned against having a major demonstration on civil rights. This was in 1963. What does this mean? So whenever we have someone who goes, you guys need to cool it down, you guys need to chill out, we just have to do this a certain way, or you guys aren't doing it the right way, you guys have to do it through this avenue, you have to go through these channels. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. Whenever we want to make a big splash so that it is in front of the eyes of many people, so that it wakes people up, you'll have some that go, simmer down now. We don't need to do all that. Just kind of chill out a little bit. They were telling them that about the March on Washington. That famous March on Washington, where the I Have a Dream speech was actually spoken. And you had white liberals telling them, it's too much. When they tell us it's too much, that's when we need to go harder. That's what we realized. That's what we learned. And so for people to look at these 5 men and go, you guys are going a little too hard. I want anybody who is a Democratic Party reformist or loyalist, when those of us who go hard against the Democratic Party because we feel that they have left us out in the lurch as a people, when we do things like the March for Medicare for All, when we do things like End the Damn Wars rally, when there's a Julian Assange rally, whether there is, when we did the Journal Strike Summit, things like that. When you have people who downplay it or say, you guys are doing too much, you're just going too far, you're going too hard. Remember what they told them. Remember that. They told them they were going too hard, and guess what? Now, 60 years later, people are like, oh my God, that was the greatest thing. But what if they listen to those cohorts of theirs, the white liberals, that said, you know what, yeah, I think it is a little too harsh. I think we might need to cool off on that. Then what? Let's keep that in mind as we continue to listen.
Well, it's our position in the NAACP that the opponents of civil rights legislation left no doubt as soon as the president spoke. In fact, they didn't wait for him to speak. They began announcing their opposition and what they intended to do. They were going to filibuster. They were going to hold up appropriation measures. They were talking, scaring the country that they weren't going to get a tax cut on account of civil rights. They're doing all the boogeyman stunts. And if they're going to use Washington as their base of operations for opposition to this bill, we don't see anything wrong with using Washington as our base to indicate support for this bill. And in my estimation, this march is going to be a 100% outpouring of the disgust and distress of Black Americans and white liberals over the way the Congress has handled this bill.
I think that in any such demonstration as the march, which is planned, you will expect loud outpouring of cries, of fears from many, many people who don't want it to take place, who are afraid that something might happen. But it seems to me that it reflects a lack of understanding of the nature of the times in which we are living. The fact that Negroes all over the country are concerned and are aroused and must express their feeling. They've waited 100 years, and that's too long to wait.
But what about white friends and liberals who have worked in these organizations for many years, who now say, look, let's not go this fast. Let's not...
we don't have people like that. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Our telephone is ringing with white people who want to get into the march.
We don't judge our friends on the basis of the color of their skin. We judge them on the basis of the fact of whether or not they are willing to go all the way with us. If they are not willing to go all the way, then they are not friends of ours.
Now, we've said that these are interracial organizations.
I'm play. Oh, Lord, let me play that again. Let me play that again. Hold up. Wait.
Of the fact of whether or not they are willing to go all the way with us. If they are not willing to go all the way, then they are not friends of ours.
What do you think about that? What do you think about what he just said? If they're not willing to go all the way, they're not friends of ours. There's a lot of people who may feel that you guys are going too hard and we just can't go with you all the way. You get that? I see what you guys are doing and I see the reason for it, but you guys are just going a little too hard. We can't go all the way with you. What, you know, what do you feel about that? Let me see. Omar says very little has changed from those days. Overall, the corruption is far worse today. Hey, Rick Solis, good to see you as well. All right. Lennon says no nonsense about allyship. Daryl says makes sense to me. Rick Solis says revolution or get out of the way. Kaya says let's talk more action. Stand with me or bleep off. Interesting. Yeah. On Rockfin, Fred Edward says go hard. Cool. All right. Let's continue.
Now, we've said that these are interracial organizations, but you 5 gentlemen are Negroes. You are assuming the leadership, and you are asking white liberals and white friends to go along with the Negro speaking for himself rather than speaking through white surrogates.
I would like to make this point because I think there is a misconception that any white people who happen to serve on your boards or committees are therefore automatically there to exercise control and restraint. This is not the experience of the Urban League. There are many white people who serve on our boards who are asking for more militancy. I speak for the National Urban League at their insistence, not at my demanding, because they feel that a Negro is best able to express the hopes and the longings of his people.
We ought to be clear that there is a desire on the part of Negroes for self-expression through leadership civil rights organizations. This is important because Negroes have been denied that self-expression for so many years. But this, not in any sense of the word, as far as I'm concerned, that white persons who are sincere cannot participate and cooperate.
Exactly.
So basically, who leads the movement? The people who are the most disenfranchised should be the ones that actually lead the movement. Here's the thing that you notice. The leaders of these movements are members of a very disenfranchised group. However, they do have allies that are behind them all the way, that is willing to go with them all the way, but they don't center themselves in it because they realize that they benefit from this system already as is. And so even though they benefit from the system, they see the unfairness and the injustice of it. So guess what? They go, you know what? I'm taking a step back. I'm just going to be here to support you. You guys are going to be the ones that lead the movement. And you can take it down to this day. It could be Black women. It could be trans people. It could be LGBTQ. It could be disabled people, what have you. But the people who are the most disenfranchised are the ones that must lead the movement because guess what? They are the ones that benefit the least from the system. So in order to make it more equitable and more fair and equal, therefore, this is what happens. They actually make sure that they call the shots, so to speak, so that there's more of a balance for everyone, or an equitable. So the person that's a little short, they get something to stand on, right? Or the person that needs to see a little bit more clearer, they're given the glasses in order to see clearer, because somebody else may see a little bit more clearer than them. That person doesn't need glasses, so therefore you're going to give the glasses to that person who can't see as clearly. So really, that's what the equity is about. And so that's one of the things that they were talking about. And so this is one of the reasons why it's good for us to have channels like RBN. Because unfortunately, and I hate to put it this way, but a lot of the commentary that we have in the space on the left, especially in this media space, tends to be very male, very white, and pretty straight. Not that they don't have good commentary, and not that they don't have great takes and good historical analysis. They absolutely do. But at the same time, there needs to be more of our voices that are in this space as well, speaking to our needs. Because the thing is that if you don't have those needs, you don't really speak about them. Or if you do, you speak about it from an anecdotal, like second or third person, recounting what our experiences are, but you don't necessarily feel the experience yourself. And so because of that, this is why it's important to uplift the voices of those of us that are the most disenfranchised. Because MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, Washington Post, New York Times, the Young Turks, I put them in there as well. Are they really going to uplift the voices of the most disenfranchised among us? These corporate entities are not going to do that. Especially when it comes to diversity of thought, because a lot of times they'll go to conservative voices, they'll go to capitalistic voices, but when it comes to those of us that may be on the left and those of us that may have a different experience than them, will they be sympathetic to hearing our voice? No. Because then hearing our voice means challenging the power of the people that actually sign your paychecks. And yes, Danny, I said TYT because they are corporate. They got money from a billionaire, they're corporate. Let's continue.
And I think it's very important to have this participation. I think it would be very dangerous and even tragic if the struggle in the United States for civil rights degenerated to a racial struggle of blacks against whites, so to speak.
Amen.
It is a tension between justice and injustice, and we enlist consciences in the struggle. We appreciate the participation in this movement of white persons of goodwill, and we have many of them, fortunately, and I think the number's growing every day, and this helps to keep the struggle on the level that it should be on.
Sure. As far as I can understand you gentlemen, this is not a racist march. This is a march of aroused Americans who want to demonstrate and assume their rights to petition their Congress witness and support the president's civil rights legislation. The Attorney General would seem to disagree with you in terms of his testimony for Congress. He says that the most disturbing thing for Negroes is the public accommodation segregation.
The truth of the thing is that it's a vicious circle. Unless people are adequately educated, they can't find good jobs. And unless people can find good jobs, they can't buy good housing, which puts them in good neighborhoods where they can get a good education. So instead of being one major thing, it's a group of things.
Yes, that's true. But it seems to me, of course, that the public accommodations matter, which is now being batted around in the Senate Commerce Committee, is the most abrasive and pervasive of the aspects of a Negro's life. Every time he steps out of his front door in the morning until he comes home at night, he runs the risk, and some of them don't run the risk, they run the certainty of this kind of denial and humiliation and mistreatment and sometimes in the South, as you well know, in many subtle ways. You walk into a store, and you're ahead of you're the next one to be waited on, but 3 white people come up and they get waited on first. This is a matter, Negroes meet this. Many places they have to ride on the back of the bus, and they do want a Coca-Cola and can't get it. Now, these seem small things, but then I think the Attorney General was talking about the things that rub people the wrong way and make them say, oh, let's get rid of it, you know.
And, you know, there are other areas of life which are very subtle, but which are not even being covered in the bill. And then there's some pronounced ways. I'm just thinking of the fact that you drive through the South. In some states, you can't even stop at the restrooms. And this is humiliating to women, you know, and it's very...
And of course, uncomfortable.
Well, it's very uncomfortable, but it's one of these little daily things. But I think that there are 2 areas that should be covered, you know, and that's the question of the voting bill. I don't see why we can't have universal suffrage for all Negroes. I mean, I really don't see why it has to be just a 6th grade education level, because that's a device, and I think we were talking beforehand about how many people will be covered.
The Nonviolent Coordinating Committee is putting a great deal of its effort on voting, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we have a great program now, and I think in the Delta of Mississippi, but Roy might want to amplify on just how many people would be covered by a 6th grade education.
The literacy test bill, you know, we agreed, we estimated, we couldn't, that not more than 100,000 Negroes would be added to the rolls under the literacy test. This is, Martin, you remarked on the number of people who didn't have a 6th grade education in one state. For 58%, I think it was, in Louisiana.
We testified before the House and suggested universal suffrage. I mean, there's just no reason why a person is not 21, he can't vote. He can go into the Army whether he can read or write. So why shouldn't he be able to vote?
And
so they're speaking about the right to vote for Black people, and basically universal suffrage meaning voting. So they wanted universal voting. And one of the things that they are talking about was that there were literacy tests as well so that you can vote. Basically meaning if you could not pass the literacy test, then you could not vote, which really is a racist barrier to keeping Black people from voting. And also you got to remember, our schools are not as updated. Our schools aren't as funded as well. It's still like that today because schools are funded through property tax instead of a blanket funding or a more equitable funding for more disenfranchised areas. And so, unfortunately, because you have some people who were Black that have an education that was below at their time 6th grade education, then guess what? Some of them could not pass the literacy test, so they could not vote, even though that is inherently a right of all persons of an adult age. And so this is one of the things that they were referring to. And it's kind of interesting because I read an article. Hang on, let me find it. Let me see. Wait, hang on. Yeah. So this was an article. Says reading the numbers, 130 million American adults. 130 million American adults have low literacy skills. So 130 million Americans in the U.S. have low literacy skills, according to Gallup analysis of data from the U.S. Department of Education. This means more than half Americans between the ages of 16 and 74, that's 54% of us, read below the equivalent of a 6th grade level. So if we were given literacy tests today, half of us would not pass. Half of us would not be able to vote today in 2022. And yes, Rolando, that is unconstitutional. So let's continue.
This is no sign that the person isn't intelligent, that the person doesn't have some basic intelligence, but because of discrimination and other conditions, many of these people haven't had an opportunity to get an education, and I think they should have the right to vote, and this is very basic.
No president has recommended a bill of this scope before, regardless of how we who suffer may feel its limitations. And I think we ought to work with that. Dangerous, as Jim has said, Jim Farmer has said, to pick out priorities, and because the opposition will start concentrating on your target. They say, well, what do you think is the number one? And this is, we have to avoid.
Roy, you made the point that no president in certainly lifetime has made this kind of civil rights recommendation to Congress. Why do you think President Kennedy did this?
He did it because a crisis was created that demanded the attention of the nation on the highest level. Just like, well, a dust bowl is something beyond the state, beyond the region, and demands federal action. A great disaster like Texas City demands national action. A great flood demands national action. And here we have a crisis in human rights brought about by one of the, in great part, by all of us, of course, but triggered by a man who sits around this table. And I think there's no doubt that Birmingham dramatized and brought into focus what Martin Luther King and his associates did in Birmingham, made it, the nation realize that at last the crisis had arrived.
It's necessary, it seems to me, and I just like to throw this out, to keep a considerable amount of pressure on. I mean, that is, a Negro does not, say in Mississippi, for instance, he has no constitutional means, that is, Eastland does not represent him, to achieve some solution. And this has to come from the government, or either he simply has to demonstrate. In other words, segregation may be like a piece of old iron, you put it in the fire to heat it up. And that so that people outside of Mississippi have to become conscious of what is going on there. For instance, there are 45 people in jail right now whose trials were held today for simply being at a voter registration meeting, and someone threw a smoke bomb in the church, and they marched down to the Justice of the Peace Office to protest, or rather to the deputy sheriff, and they were arrested for disturbing the peace. And these are old ladies, some of them 75 years old, but yet they want to stay in jail.
The people that have the vote don't realize how much they could do by writing a letter.
That's right.
A congressman said to me, I have 8 letters on civil rights. 8 from his district. 8. And 5 of those were from white people. Now, you don't have to write a polemic. You just have to write a postcard saying, please vote for the Civil Rights Bill.
In traveling around the country, however, I hear many people make utterances which seem to indicate that they think the millennium will have arrived after we get civil rights legislation. That is not the case. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Even if we get the entire package that the president asked, plus various of the other good bills that are pending before Congress, a good legislation does not automatically enforce itself. We then have a problem of seeing to it that it is enforced in town after town, city after city, and only the will of the people. will bring about the enforcement?
I would like to say that I have.
This is deep. Only the will of the people can bring about enforcement. We're past bills now because we realize that both parties are parties of the rich, of the wealthy. This was a viable path back then, but this is one of those points where things definitely have changed. But the part of the enforcement of the people has not. And I would argue that's really what they're afraid of the most. And this is why the division of all of us is so important to them, to keep us divided, to keep us going at each other's throats. What does Sabby say all the time? She said, it's not about left versus right, it's about class. That's what it's about. And as we continue to learn and grow, we start to build coalitions. We realize that we all have this very similar skin in the game. And the more that we look at each other, we start to see the similarities between each other. And how an egalitarian society will actually benefit all of us in tremendous ways. Let me go to some comments in the chat, because I think we're about to come to a point. Yeah, we're about to come to a point, or a really good point soon. But I just want to get some comments in really quick. Sherry says, education is key. However, in the duopoly we find ourselves in, I don't think that it really matters how educated you are to vote. Yeah, we got to remember, and this is to add on to what you just said, Sherry, is that not everyone, just like Dr. King said, has the opportunity presented before them. Also, our education system is inadequate. So it doesn't teach the way kids learn. Therefore, just because someone doesn't do well within this education system doesn't mean that they lack intelligence. It just means that our system has failed to actually teach them in an adequate way to the way they learn. And so we need to readjust the way our system is in order to teach these children optimally how to learn, or in ways in which to learn, or the things that they need to know in order to survive. So yeah, great point. John says, I was testing above a 6th grade reading level in 1st grade when they started testing me. Nice. Not me. Jason Rodriguez says, blaming the education system is not enough. You have to have a personal duty to learn. Here's the thing. The education system is part of the blame. And to ignite that wanting to learn, and also teaching the kids how they, teaching kids by learning how they learn is also very important. So you just can't put that responsibility on a 7, 8, 9-year-old and says it's your duty. You put some responsibility on them that's age appropriate, but for the most part, as the system, you also have to look and see how they learn, how they take in information, how they can retain information, and how they can actually use critical thinking, and teaching them critical thinking. But the thing is that we have a system that doesn't want to do that. We have a system that relies on compliance and obedience, rather than teaching critical thinking and the ability to learn, and also increasing the interest in wanting to learn more. So I do think that we should have some blame for the system, because part of the system that we have educationally is brought about by our political system, which is being owned by the oligarchs. So therefore, guess what? Yes, we do have to blame the system. So I would have to disagree with you a little bit. Because the thing is, that's a very individualistic type of synopsis that you just gave there. I hated reading. I absolutely hated reading growing up. Even though I'm fairly decent at reading, I hated it. It wasn't until I'm in my 30s that I started like reading. But the thing is that could it have been brought about more deeper within me when I was younger if they had taught the way more than the way I learned? Yes. But the problem is that's not what they want. That's not what the powers that be want. Nadia says, cheers. Good to see you, Nadia. See, Alvaro says, I grew up poor Mexican hood. One black person, I'm hood, and he was the kindness and jolly galore. A hippie in the 60s, all likely him. So I knew TV was propaganda against blacks. I was 7 years old. Thank you so much. Wadi says, the Constitution really should be a living document rather than a frozen in time with the occasional update. Interestingly enough, in Cuba, they actually amended their constitution in 2019. And so they actually treat theirs as a living document, and they actually update it, and they do it by having meetings and referendums with all the citizens of Cuba in order to have a constitution that reflects the total ideals of the country. So I think that's pretty cool. And we should be doing the same, but we don't. We treat the Constitution as this holy, sacred document that shall not be changed. Like, for instance, like we should totally change the 13th Amendment, because that exception needs to get out of there, because that exception allows for slavery still. Sherry says, my grandfather had a 6th-grade education and became a card-carrying union welder. He did pretty good for himself. Of course, that was another time. Yeah, definitely. Nadia says the Dems paymasters order are to defeat the left, not the Republicans. That is also very true. Blaine Girl says Ted Cruz is a lawyer. That's true. Yeah. There are some educated fools. All right. Thank you. Merry Christmas, JB. Stay healthy, little brother. Thank you. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you. All right. And thank you, James, for the super chat. Merry Chrysler. Merry Pontiac to you, James. Seabright says, I'm a black progressive. I think there should be some sort of testing to vote. We have to test for so many things in this country. Voting is important enough to expect competency. See, here's the thing. That's a bit of a slippery slope, because then you start to get to a point where it's like, who chooses what's competent and what's not? You know what I mean? We have to be very careful with that type of thought. because there may be people who may be competent in other ways that may not be as competent as you are, or they think in different ways. But the thing is that the right to vote should be inherent to every single person, because that is a right. So it should not be conditional depending on your education level if you have the right to vote. See what I mean? Because then it's no longer a right. So I have to disagree with you, Seabrass. But thank you for the comment. All right, let's go. Wait, hang on. Let me see. Choir Boy says, let's not be too hard on the Constitution. Has kept the tyrants at bay this long. Yeah, whose fault is that the Republic is being negated by sociopaths for sure. We go a little bit hard. All right, let's continue. Oh, we're about to get to this really good part. Okay.
Faith that the American people today are sufficiently convinced of the determination of Negroes to be truly free, and the rightness of that aspiration, that I will be terribly disappointed if there is not a tremendous amount of support from all people for this legislation. But I would agree with Jim Farmer that this will just be, to me, the beginning. It's sometimes a lot easier to get people to walk a picket line than to walk to the library, or to get people to participate, parents to demonstrate, than it is to go to PTA meetings.
One of the heartening things about this aroused conscience that Martin spoke of a moment ago is the unprecedented activity of the organized faiths, the organized religious faiths. I think we're going places on this, but I like to put in a little sour note here. And I get some mail that I can't read on television, that I can't exhibit, and the postmaster delivers like this, holding it up by the people who say that Negroes ought to go back to Africa, and you're only apes anyway, and you think we're going to give you a civil rights bill, you're crazy, and we'll run you in the Mississippi River first, and a whole lot of other uncomplimentary things.
I'm really more concerned about the so-called gentle people of prejudice, the people who will say, I'm with you, I am for you, but what
You're
about
going too
property
fast,
values,
or-
and the man's right to run his business, and what about standards of the school being what? And so for these roots who would say, well, maybe you should have all of this right now, these are the people I'm really concerned
May
with.
I comment on that? I agree with you completely. While I share Roy's concern about the extreme bigots, I'm far more concerned about the good, the decent people who don't throw a bomb as they do in Birmingham or other places in the South, but they quietly pack their bags and move away. And this, it seems to me, is more damaging to our cause and more
Liberals! The more things change, the more they stay the same, y'all. What are they talking about? Who are they talking about? The gentle ones, the ones that are like, oh, I agree, but, they're the ones that have Black Lives Matter. But as soon as a Black Lives actually moves right next to them, they're like, yeah, we need to move out. We got to go to a different place. We don't, Or they're quick to call the cops with the door closed, looking through the blinds, and they're not even wanting to acknowledge our presence in the street and be like, hey, I see that you just moved in. Hello, welcome. Instead, they're like, oh, these Black people, I don't know who they are. They just came into the neighborhood. Let me call the police. Let me, and they'll do it while looking through the blinds. And they're the ones that will still smile in our face and act like they're with us until they don't want to actually be with us. Or you'll have some that want us to stay within a particular party and try to reform that, even though they have shown us time and time again that we cannot reform it. And then when we try to go outside the confines, then it's like, these guys, they're grifters. They're not serious. They're too extreme. They're too radical. Because we actually want to change the system that some of them benefit from. Because it's not fair to all of us. And this is what we talk about. We talk about this all the time. And 60 years ago, they were talking about this in 1963. And if they can acknowledge this, and if they can talk about this, and if they see it, then we're not crazy. We're not wrong. And our eyes aren't lying to us. Our ears are not fibbing to us. We actually see what y'all... Look. Some of the ones who want to stifle our progress, even though the progress may threaten their prosperity in an unfair and unjust system. The prosperity, I mean. Let me go back just a couple of seconds.
Or other places in the South, but they quietly pack their bags and move away. And this, it seems to me, is more damaging to our cause and more dangerous to the total cause of integration.
I have an answer for you, gentlemen, but go ahead.
Yeah, I guess what I'm concerned about the one in between, going back to Africa and moving away, and that's basically the public officials, you see, who inflict all of this brutality, because the millennium is not going to come primarily because we have no laws to deal with police brutality in the South, which I think is a fundamental issue in this whole thing.
Yeah, I suppose you are.
What? What? Bro. This gentleman could have said this for today, and it's still relevant. Like, what? You telling me? He's talking about the police brutality in the South. Guess what? It's no longer just in the South, baby. It's everywhere. 1963, 60 years ago, he was saying that. Guess what? Now we have what is Nick one of the co-founders of? The co-authors of 10 Demands? Talking about how we need to defund the police on the road to abolition? Why? If he's been talking about it happening back then 60 years ago, you don't think that it hasn't intensified yet? It has. We're getting murdered and killed all the time in these streets. Man. Let's go. Let's continue.
Very conscious of this because your membership is on the firing line, and
yeah, and I've seen
daily
people,
the victims of police.
And Dr. King just came from Danville, and over a month ago we saw 35 people with holes in their heads as big as a ashtray, inflicted by the police. And nothing has been done about it. And the government, it seems to me, ought to do something about this.
What specifically would you suggest for dealing with this?
Well, I would suggest, you see, that the government go in and file some suits. When the constitutional right person is denied, the government ought to file a suit in behalf of that person. I think this gets back to part 3.
That's right.
Now, the government says that the existing laws are inadequate, but yet they're not asking, or it is not asking, for adequate laws in this legislation.
I think the only thing that changes the mind of a policeman like that is to sue him and to convict him and to convince him that the Constitution has some control over that billy club he has in his hand.
But as we know, the laws changed, and as those laws changed, and guess what? Now they have even more power. They have things like qualified immunity. So now they are basically untouchable. So now, since that's changed, guess what? There needs to be a flipping over of the table. That's basically what it is. The table needs to be flipped over. Thank you, S. Cunningham, for this super sticker. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yes. A flipping of the table needs to happen. Man, this is gold.
Is there anyone who is planning to do this?
Well, now we're entering into one of the most difficult areas of civil rights, because the whole area of convicting a policeman for depriving a man of his civil rights has to be proved down to the last period and comma. Not only that, his intent has to be proved.
Jim?
Yes, I think we have an additional weapon, and that is the ballot,
Yes,
the vote, and which is why all of us here are pushing a voter registration drive. If Negroes are registered in large numbers down there in Greenwood, then the police, of course, will take a different point of view. And in Danville also, because they'll know then that they have to be responsible and responsive not only to white voters, but to Negro voters as well.
White people in the South and in the North need education on this matter. I don't mean education on humanity as to Negroes, but they need education on the constitutional rights of Negroes and on the fact that he's a citizen. He's been here 344 years, and to hear some of them talk, they'd say, look what we're doing for you people.
Mm-hmm. If you've never been in Mississippi, and Roy was born, and I just have to get back because I think I have to just try to help her. Well, I'm sorry, your family was. I was raised down there, and I want to talk about these people. See, I think the president ought to go through Mississippi because I don't think he has any conception, any visual conception. Intellectually, he knows the suffering that's going on there. But just to see some of these shacks that people are living in, it's frightening in a sense. You know, down in Itabena, you know, it's just very depraved.
Itabena?
Yeah.
I've been to Itabena.
Isn't it a depraved?
Oh,
it's
really
pitiful. And
I think what we need to get at here is if we could get the total society to somehow lose this making a god of state rights and begin to see citizens as national citizens.
Right.
Because what's actually happened in this country is much of the miseducation, lack of education altogether, much of the social disorganization we see in the North that concerns us can directly be traced back to the indifference of the people in the North to the problems of the South. Right. These people later become the welfare load, the crime rate of the North. If we had adopted the concept of a citizen in Mississippi being a citizen of the United States, then we would have avoided all these problems. Yes. That's the way they're seen overseas.
That's right.
I think the president ought not only look at the housing in Mississippi, he ought to look at the slum tenements in Harlem and in 100 Harlems across the country. Indeed, we might say that our people are not only being bitten by dogs in Birmingham, Reverend King, but by the rats in the slum tenements.
Well, aren't we saying, gentlemen, that a program has not yet been worked out to grapple with the magnitude of this problem in the United States, both North and South?
It's not regional.
So right.
Isn't there a need now, because of the urgency and the seriousness of the situation, to develop a sort of crash program to lift the standards of the Negro and to get rid of the underlying conditions that produce so many social evils and develop so many social problems? I think this is what we face at this time, and I know.
He said cash program. MLK is talking about reparations. Yeah. They've been talking about it back then. They may have not came up with that word. They may have not said it specifically in that way, but they were talking about it. And we're talking about it today. What did I talk about last week? I talked about that on this show last week. Yeah. Because you got to remember, it wasn't too long before this program, about 17, 18 years or so, when the GI Bill was written, and that gave a lot of the soldiers that are coming home from World War II the ability to go and get low-cost loans for housing. And then a lot of the white ones actually went out into the suburbs and moved out into the suburbs. And so a lot of these white people actually lived in these projects. And these projects were upkept by the government. But guess what? The government saw that they dipped out and they went out into the suburbs. So the government was like, you know what? We're not gonna upkeep these anymore. Oh yeah, black people are moving in. All right, they can move in, but we're not gonna upkeep them as much. And so they started to break down and dilapidate. Then rats start coming in and bugs and things like that because they weren't being kept up. And so now you got black people talking about, well, we don't have adequate housing. And what does our government say? Too bad, so sad. Redlining still exists, by the way. It may not be as overt, but it still exists. We're still locked out in certain ways. There's still segregation going on. All right, let me go back.
It leads to the whole question of discrimination in reverse and all of that. But I think we've got to face the fact in this country that because of the legacy of slavery and segregation and the seeds of injustice planted in the past, that we have this harvest of confusion now, and we're going to continue to have it until we get to the root of the problem.
Well, that's that root and the rats go together.
Yeah.
The announcement of the Real Estate Brokers Association some time ago advising their members not to pay any attention to fair housing laws, that property rights still came first. And when you think of the billions of dollars in this country tied up in real estate, there isn't much that the President of the United States could do by going in some slums, let's be fair.
Yeah. Well,
The real power and obstacle there is the property rights structure in this country, which isn't concerned with how many kids are bitten by rats or how many people live in slums.
Most of you recall.
Oh, that could have been said today, baby. Think of companies like BlackRock that are turning us into a nation of renters. Think about these real estate developers who basically own our state government and municipal governments that want to keep property, prices, housing and rental prices up extremely high because they want to make more profit. And how our politicians are beholden to them. And so then guess what? We're paying 40, 50, 60, 70% of our incomes just on rent or a mortgage. And the only thing we can do is to work like zombies day in and day out with no real means to rest and spend time with our loved ones and friends and family without real time to be able to just live our lives. It's just this rat race. It's just keep thinking about today, and you keep thinking about this isn't 1963. This is going on 2023. Man.
That we did announce recently, our board adopted this domestic Marshall Plan, and this was
Yes.
consciously given this name because, if you recall, this country has spent some $12 billion on rehabilitation of Europe, war-torn Europe. In a 4-year period, we have spent millions on refugees from Cuba and from Hungary. We spent all kinds of money giving free education to veterans after the war and making it possible for them to buy homes. I think the time has come for us to honestly face up to the fact that this tremendous gap due to historical deprivation that the Negro has suffered will not be closed not quickly enough unless we consciously and deliberately establish programs that call not just for equal schools, but better schools and better teachers and provisions for housing and conscious recruiting at the level of employment. This has to be done in order to get rid of what I see too much of, and that is the feeling of despair and hopelessness.
I think that
He's talking about reparations, by the way. That's basically what he's talking about.
Negroes have had special treatment in this country for 350 years, special treatment of a negative sort.
That's right.
Now what Whitney and the rest of us are asking for is some special treatment of
And
a
a
positive
positive,
sort
right.
to wipe. Now what Whitney and the rest of us
To get rid of
You gotta
what
go over that
I
again.
see too much of, and that is the feeling of despair and hopelessness.
I want you guys to listen to what he says next. What this gentleman says next. Just listen.
I think that Negroes have had special treatment in this country for 350 years, special treatment of a negative sort.
That's right.
Now what Whitney and the rest of us are asking for is some special treatment of
And
a
a
positive
positive,
sort to
right.
wipe out that.
So we had special treatment, but we had special treatment of a negative sort. Now it has to be flipped to special treatment of a positive sort, so that there's an equalizing taking place. You got to think about it like this. It's like you're on a platform, two platforms, right? You have one side of people that have been on that platform, and then you have those of us black people who are on another platform. But what happens is they dig the dirt out from underneath the black people and they put that dirt underneath the white people. And so what happens is it goes this, boom, 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 right? So here's the thing. We're not just trying to get just back to this, where we're supposed to be. Now we have to go even further to go here. So what has to happen? That special treatment needs to happen where it goes boom, 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 right? And the thing is that can only happen by giving back to those of us that lost that ground in order to have that repair taking place. So that's basically what he means by shifting it to a special treatment of a positive sort. Because the thing is at their time it was 350 years, at our time is over 400 years of special treatment of a negative sort. Man, this could have been, this conversation. Let me go to the chat real quick. Yeah, Omar, a nation of renters is a scary thought. Mima says, so it becomes serfs. That's basically what it is. the Jam Mom says, yeah, the root of the problem. Yeah. Mima says Irish famine was a British genocide of the Irish. They saw them as trash. Jennifer says, I am lucky I bought my row house in 95. Couldn't afford it now. Yeah. Austin Jones says UBI plus reparations for the win. John Chaos says land near me goes for 2,000 an acre, 200 an acre lot for wells across the street from me. E. Heller says cough cough proxy war. All that money going towards Ukraine and nothing for the rest of us who actually really need it. Jennifer says, just think 63 was around the time of Vietnam. Yeah. Jason Rodriguez says, I don't agree with negative special treatment and I don't agree with positive special treatment. Agree to disagree then. Nadia says JFK's assassination demanded the concession of LBJ to large-scale escalation of the genocidal U.S. war against Vietnam. David Schlesinger says, don't forget indigenous people. They're having their conversations too. They're definitely having their own conversations. Jessica Mai says the families that can trace their roots back to specific plantations should be given that land. I'm not mad at that. With the permission of the indigenous people that land actually belonged to in the first place. Matt Miller said reparations are in order. Yeah. Septian Patterson says, Merry Christmas to JB and the rest of the RBN crew. Merry Christmas. All right. Omar says, honestly, the sheer greed of American politicians and oligarchs will destroy the entire country. Yeah. And I'll go back to that really quick. I got this chat on Rockfin. Choir Boy says, yeah, I want direct democracy hard. Thank you. Thanks for the tip on Rockfin. Roger says, Merry Christmas. I just got here. Did you see video I sent you how governor is attracting former NYPD to come there? No, I haven't seen it yet, but that sounds interesting. If there's any need for Floridians to use the CBI, aka Citizen Ballot Initiative to end qualified immunity, it is now. File it for next month ASAP. Plus single-payer healthcare, outlaw private equity from owning housing, and a Florida public bank, plus local public banks to pay for it all. Thank you very much for that, Roger. Appreciate it. Let's continue. All right.
Gap.
Are you united in this, or is there any?
Well, I want to be
Yes,
understood
we
on
are.
it.
But I'm asking people to have people who aren't qualified.
And we're
If
not
you're
asking
asking-
them to skip over white people or to deny white people their chance, but we're saying that just giving the Negro an equal break
not enough.
is not enough.
I wonder,
Across the
gentlemen, if
board.
you're in asking for this special break, you're not asking for a special break for the nation rather than just for the Negro.
Oh,
it will
indeed.
be.
Look, if this country, if this doesn't, they don't solve the human rights problem of the Negro.
Right.
The manpower problem.
This country morally is sunk.
Not only,
Absolutely.
Well, what about
Not only morally.
practical manpower
Well,
and human resources?
they've been suffering from manpower all along, and I anticipate what Jim's going to say. Not only morally sunk, but they'll be sunk.
They'll be sunk economically too.
See,
Economically, politically, and morally.
The President's Council of Economic Advisors said some months ago that discrimination in jobs against Negroes costs the country something like $13 billion a year.
If you gentlemen are correct that it cannot survive without instituted justice,
Okay.
is it possible that the society will choose not to survive rather than to?
Not consciously.
Not consciously.
Not consciously.
Well,
No, I seem to sense that increasingly more people are beginning to see integration as an opportunity and not just a problem. The fact
are
that we
these only articulate people, though? Are these
No,
only
I-
the people to whom you talk? What
there are
about the
some
masses of American whites? Could it be that they are so conditioned to hate Negroes
No.
that they would rather see the society go under rather than to provide?
well,
them
I
It's not
something?
the
I don't
masses.
think
Politicians
that,
might articulate
No,
this.
the average white in this country doesn't want to see his country go under rather than give a fair deal to the Negro. He believes in a fair deal, but he also wants to protect
Well,
himself and his job, and I don't
gentlemen,
blame him.
I have read a number of writers on this, and the most eloquent of the writers seem to me to be Mr. Baldwin. And if I read underneath his lines, there seems to be a deep sense that maybe the American white man is not prepared for survival and justice. But as I listen to you gentlemen talk, you do seem much more optimistic than this, Jim.
Well, Kenneth, I would not go so far as to say that the American white man is prepared not to survive in order to avoid giving Negroes equal rights. But I will say that I would not be prepared at the moment to put our cause to a general referendum in this country.
No.
I don't think we'd win it.
I don't think civil rights are negotiable.
I think I could almost predict what the figure would be.
Of course.
2-1 against you.
I'm sure it would be.
Well, isn't
That's also very interesting. I would add to the commentary that really the people who would rather this country go under than to actually give equality and equity would be the oligarchs, the ultra rich, the wealthy. They would rather see this country go under than to actually concede to equality. Yeah. Sociopaths. The average person, the average poor person, they're like, yeah, no, we need to give equality. There may be some outliers out there, but I honestly do, maybe this is maybe a little bit optimistic of me, but I do think there are a lot of people who say, look, if you present the argument succinctly about the unfairness, especially that Black people have been treated in this country, then yeah, that repair should take place and the equality and equity should take place in order for us to get to an equal playing field. It should. And so really, I think it's more the oligarchs and the people who say they would disagree that are of similar a similar economic status as you or I. Those are some of the people that have been played and lied to in order to keep ourselves divided. Now, it's up to them whether they actually learn the lesson and realize that they are being played just to keep the oligarchs in power. And if they're willing to change that, then great, come along with us for the ride. But if not, well, too bad, so sad. We're going to have this equalizing and equity take place whether you're for it or not. Because the thing is that if you're against fairness, well, you're just going to have to cry mad. Stay mad. Salty asshole. Because guess what? you know, we have to have justice. That's just the way it is.
Isn't it true that we're grappling with a problem that constantly emerges in history, that you have a few people who are crusaders in the right direction. You always have a few people who are crusaders in the wrong direction. And the vast majority are out there in the middle somewhere, with a great deal of apathy and complacency. And I think we have this in our country today. The vast majority of people are not active integrationists or active segregationists. They are passive adherents to the status quo.
But
and
they
I
have
think
been
the
socialized
job,
in a society that in which racism is.
I agree. And I think the job here is for the creative minority to work on this large group, because I think these people are pliable to the legitimate and just demands of the Negro. And I.
So, what did Nick say? I heard Nick say this before. Is we're going after the people who are consider themselves to be in the middle, and we're informing them and letting them know, look, you have more power than you realize. This is what the government has been doing on behalf of whom, not because of on behalf of you, but on behalf of these oppressive capitalistic oligarchs that are constantly trying to steal more from you. And so these are the ones that we are trying to awaken. Not the extreme people who want to be the lapdogs of the oligarchs. There, maybe a few of them may shift, but they're also a minority. And so that's what I surmised from what Dr. King was actually saying. And so it's actually important for us to keep talking about these things, to keep putting this out there, to keep talking to our neighbors, to keep talking to different people, letting people know, hey, this is what's going on. This is why it's going on, and use historical analysis and use what we have learned in order to educate people so that they realize, hey, you're being cheated too. I think that's something that is important for all of us to engage in. Whether it's our family members, whether it's our friends, whether it's people that we meet that are workers, what have you. And people are waking up. And that's the best news that we have had this year. And I cannot wait to see it happen even more in 2023. I'm hoping between 2023 and 2024, it will be a pivotal year for us to see more people that have awakened, that have become woke. I'm not talking about woke in the cynical sense that some people use. I'm talking about actual woke in the sense that Black people mean. That we actually awaken to what is really going on, and then it activates more people into taking more action because of it.
I do not choose to follow the path of despair because I think that there is a way out, even though we do have to face the problems that have developed and conditioning that has developed as a result of this problem existing a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there is a way out, and I think that with the creative minority standing up with determination to solve this problem, we can solve it.
Whenever the American people have been faced with a crisis, they've come through. Now, they may have come through in ragged and bloody fashion, but they've come through. And I'm convinced that they'll come through this one, even though it involves very deep-seated emotions. I think they're going to solve it.
I've always had the feeling that one of the major problems was that the average white citizen somehow drew a correlation between status and exclusiveness, and in many cases racial exclusiveness, so that the more exclusive the neighborhood, the school, the place of employment, the higher his status. Now, I think.
But he's been taught not to like you either.
Yes, but
not
now,
to like you because of the color of your skin.
Yes, but now he must be taught that this is a sign of his basic insecurity. That for years, as Baldwin put it, he has had a reason, a need to feel superior. Now,
Oh. You have to feel special because you're insecure. Because you don't feel comfortable knowing that that person that lives in the hood is no better than you. That's an interesting thought. There's this thought, and I actually was thinking about, I was mulling over this a couple of days ago, that all these people, especially a lot of the PMCs, they don't want to change a lot because that means that they will be on par with everybody else, meaning that they're not so special. They're not so set apart. Oh, we live in this gated community because we're better than you. Oh, we're of a more better breed of people. Even black people. It's like, we're not black, B-L-A-C-K. We are block, B-L-A-Q-U-E. We're block. Right? See, that's the... See, now we're getting into the mental type of degradation, really, that some people of especially higher echelons in society have. And then they want to make you feel like, oh, you're just a temporarily displaced millionaire. You'll get there one day. Just keep running on that hamster wheel, and then you'll finally eventually get there. Just keep running. Because you think somehow, because you hustle harder, or you're reading all these books and you're trying to have that millionaire mindset, that somehow you're of a special breed, you just haven't got there yet. When really it is the system that is designed to make it seem like it's just, oh, we're up here because we were blessed or we're more special. When really it's just, they're just a bunch of crooks and thieves. That's really all it is. Why don't you want the homeless to have homes? What horrible thing would it do for you if homeless actually were just given homes? Like, what damage is it going to do to you? What damage is it going to do if everybody gets food as a right? If everyone has an education as a right? What damage is that going to do to you? The only thing that it damages is the ego. You literally have a system that's run by a bunch of people that just want to think that they're better than everybody else. And so this is how they set themselves apart. And then they typically project. Oh, well, we just give them handouts. They're just going to be lazy. Oh, you mean the handouts that the government actually gave you by means of tax cuts? And by means of taking and stealing our surplus labor so you can just chill out on the Cayman Islands once in a while and not do absolutely nothing? And then you project that onto us? Even though we're overworked and underpaid, actually constantly having disease of the despair? Let's continue. God, I love this conversation. This is so great. I'm glad I did this.
Now we must change the norm and get people to understand that it is insecurity that makes you want to take advantage and to hate, that only the secure people now can move toward inclusiveness. It is the more intelligent, the more mature people who want this kind of thing, and only the tragically insecure need today to surround themselves with sameness.
Oh, bars! Bars! Oh my goodness. Ooh, say it again.
Gentlemen, I certainly want to thank you for what certainly is the most stimulating and to me quite instructive discussion. I think that America is indeed fortunate to have men of your breadth, your perspective, your sense of responsibility and intelligence as the leaders of probably the most significant social revolution since the 18th century. It certainly is my personal opinion that you five men are the contemporary versions of our founding fathers who risked so much and dared so much for freedom and liberty.
Oh, that's for another leader. That's for another day. Oh, I gotta do it. You know what? Oh, that's a whole hour. I don't know if I can do that. That'll probably end up being like a 3-hour stream, maybe a 4-hour stream if I react to that sometime. Black leaders discussion featuring Angela Davis, Kwame Ture, and Fannie Lou Hamer. Ooh, that sounds like a good one. I'm gonna have to listen to that later. But that was it. That was interesting, right? Very, very deep discussion. Man, let's go to the comments. What do you guys think about all that? Especially at the end. Thanks, Jason. I'm going to be hopefully coming back, JB. Thank you. Thank you. Even though we have some mild disagreements, it's always good to see you. So I can't wait to see you back. Love the show. Great topics, great engagement. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. E. Heller says, there is no middle. If you are neutral, you are taking the side of the status quo establishment. Hey, remember when Sarah Palin, you betcha, she said only dead fish go with the flow. That's actually a good quote. Only dead fish go with the flow. So, yeah, E. Heller. All right. Sula Moon says, awakened. All right. Yikum24 says, always love the revolutionary videos that come with live stream opens and closes. What a great episode with a story to narrate things. Powerful compilation. Beautiful Xmas gift from you, JB, to us. Oh, thank you. Thank you so very much. Like the blue guys in your avatar. Thank you. Seabrass says, the FBI stole one of the most important Black people ever born. MLK is an icon. Indeed, indeed. Thank you. Cat Terrell. Good to see you, Cat Terrell. All right. Happy holidays to you. Brian Grimsby says they are pushing us to the limit. Definitely. Definitely. Austin says the cruelty is the point. Definitely. Thank you. David says, keep up the excellent work. Oh, thank you. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Sula Moon says it's called the American Dream because you have to be asleep to believe in it. That's from George Carlin, the great George Carlin. I would love to talk. Man, I wish he was still alive. I would love to talk to him. That would be a great conversation. Fat Man TV says, damage to the sick ego. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Nadia says, they tried to do this with the European aristocracy too, saying not being stunted from meeting childhood nutrition and childhood mental development windows was inborn superiority. Yeah, when really, if you just gave us all great nutrition and helped us all to learn the way, help teach us all the way we learn and to develop as to fully well-rounded human beings. Everybody may be different, but everybody has an equality, that of humanity. Good to see you, John H. All right. Mr. Borick says, Harvard, darling. Yeah, some people who are like, oh, I went to this school, so therefore I'm set apart and I'm special. And it's like, not really. It's like, no. Thing is that the system is set up so that it makes you feel like you're that much better than one another, when in reality, it's the system is made to allow only certain people to excel. That's like, it's like having a contest of who can breathe underwater longer, and the contest is between you, a blue whale, and a shark. Who can stay underwater without having to come up for air? The system, the ocean, is designed for people like the shark, right? The people who can still deal with the system, for the most part, like the blue whale, they can hold their breath for hours. Okay, cool. But then us, we try to hold our breath. By the time we hit 60 seconds, we're like, we can't do it. So that's what it's like. The system is set up like that. Well, what would equity be, right? Well, then, you give somebody like us the ability to have a scuba system so that we can stay underwater for longer. Or you just change the system entirely. And so who can breathe air the longest? You keep the shark in a tank, right? You put the blue whale in a tank, and then they can come up for air, and you make an allowance for that. And you let the dude just stand there on the ground and just breathe. And it's just equitable, because now the shark can still breathe. The blue whale can actually still stay within that environment that's conducive for them, but they can still breathe, and then you can breathe. Janice says, happy holidays for those who celebrate. Happy holidays. And for those who don't celebrate, happy Sunday. All right. Yeah, E. Heller says the ego conversation was important. I'm glad to see that. Yeah, I think that's part of the problem, is that there's so many people who honestly think because I excelled in this system, that means I'm better, when in reality, the system was more tailored to just a small number of people who are like you. But the game is rigged only for people who are in your favor. It's like creating a meal for people who love creating a meal for people who aren't allergic to peanuts. So you have sauces with peanut dipping sauce. You have peanut butter and jelly. You have peanut butter pie and all these other different things. But then, some of us, we have an allergic to peanuts. And guess what? we can only pick around and, but that person who's able to eat everything is like, oh, I'm better than you. And it's like, no, it's just, you're not better than me. It's just, I have an allergy to this system. And it's not fair that you're able to eat all this while I'm sitting here and I'm sitting here starving. And then you go, well, all you need to do is just eat it. You'll get used to it. Next thing you know, the person eats it, and then they start to get asphyxiation and they end up on the floor. And then you look at that person and says, I told you can't hang. That's the rigging of the system. Ooh, Mark says, I would also be enormously successful if I was allowed to make the rules. Damn, Mark. Bars. Yes. And that's what it's about. They made the rules. We didn't make the rules. The small minority made the rules. And so therefore, guess what? The people who are like the minority, if they're the ones that make the rules, only the people who are like the minority are going to be the ones that excel. But if the majority was the ones that actually made the rules, that meaning the rest of us, and especially those of us who are the most disenfranchised, then guess what? Then it'd be a lot more egalitarian and it'd be a lot more equitable and equal. But that's something that they don't want, because then that means that they're just like everybody else. And my question is, what's so wrong with that? What's so wrong with celebrating our differences instead of looking down upon them? But when it comes to our material conditions, everybody has what they need. I remember I have this quote from Albert Einstein memorized, and it's one of my favorite quotes from him. Albert Einstein said, everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking that it is stupid. Einstein was a socialist, by the way. Meaning, everybody has the ability to excel in life, but it depends on the environment that which they are given to excel. I will never win a swimming race against a dolphin. And to put me up against the dolphin and then say, well, you just didn't do good enough. You just didn't apply yourself hard enough. But they're a dolphin. They're made for this. I'm not. I'm a human being. And so this is when equity takes place. So then you put a dolphin in the water and then put me on foot next to the dolphin, and then let us race. Then it actually, my ass will still be slow. I still get beat by the dolphin, but that's beside the point. Put somebody like Usain Bolt, they'll probably be on par with the dolphin in the water. It's the same thing. You can't expect a dolphin to race against me on solid dry ground. The dolphin's just going to sit there and flap around. It's not fair to the dolphin. So this is why I say inequity also needs to take place. Each according to their ability, each according to their need. But that's socialism. That's what people don't like. Because then that means that people have to be seen as equal, the same. They don't want that. Seabrass. Oh, thank you. Actually, I have my own channel. I'll put the link to my channel in the chat real quick. Here you go, Seabrass. There is my channel. John Chaos says, you still lose, JB. Dolphins are fast. Yeah, I know. I know. Just work with me for a second. You get the point, though, right? You get at least a little bit, just a smidge. But yeah. Nadia says, the ones who control the money printing are more concerned with the transferring of material resources than money per se. So the ones with the true inside connection to power are something different. And you're absolutely right in that, because the thing is, these are the ones that actually want to go and commit imperialism by extracting the resources from these different areas so that they can control these resources, so that they maintain power over us. Also, remember, resources are also in the form of human beings. We are also resources. So therefore, the control also needs to be over you and me. So Catterell says, actual dolphin populations are in global decline from actual human mayhem in the waters. This is why we need to change the way we do things. Point, Mark. I want to be like that baby in that movie. Message! I think a majority of people do like socialism, but most of them are conditioned to hate it. And this is why RBN exists. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. All right. Catterell says, we are those dolphins. Not an analogy. Sulu Moon says, capitalism kills. It does. Let's go to the chat, the Rockfin chat real quick. Because I'll be heading out soon. Because I got some family to see. All right. So thank you for the tip. Roger says, for capitalism to thrive, it needs an underclass to exploit. Yes, definitely, Roger. Plus, it is based on competition. However, unfair competition. Perhaps if the winners didn't rig the system so much, we wouldn't have a problem with it. Yet, some get to share 2 to 3 generations ahead. I'm sorry, some get to start 2 to 3 generations ahead while others get left behind. We must go from a competitive society to a society that collaborates and cooperates to achieve greatness. Support co-ops. I actually like that one, Roger. I really like that. Hashtag respect. Yeah. You haven't let me astray yet, Roger. All right. Serentino says, spread holiday cheer in communism, JB. Thank you so much. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on what was said? You know, and if you're watching this on the rewatch, you know, put down in the comments what you thought, especially as far as what I said during the commentary. Roger says you missed a rock. Okay. I did? You said, You did? Because I don't see it unless you sent it and it hasn't come through yet. Let me check. Yeah, this one, Merry Xmas. I just got here. Did you see the video I sent you of your governor attracting NYPD to come here if there's any need for Floridians to use the Citizen Ballot Initiative, aka Citizen BI, to end qualified immunity? It is now filed for it next month ASAP plus single payer healthcare. Yeah, I read this one already, and then the second one I read. Did you send another one just now? Because I haven't seen it. Let me refresh it really quick just to maybe something happened. I don't know. Oh, yep, you did. Okay. I got it. I had to refresh it. Refresh it. Mentos fresher. Mentos fresher. Said, oh shoot, I thought I sent it. Check your DM the video. Okay. All right. I won't be able to do it on this channel. I mean, on this show today because I'll be heading out soon. But I'll take a look at it. Thank you so much, Roger. Harris says capitalism is based on a web of lies, not on competition. That's true. John says, I like how they spread Xmas cheer in Christiania. Dress as Santa, go to the stores with a big red bag, steal a bunch of toys, and hand them out to random kids on the street until cops come. Nice. Good to see you, Sulamoon. All right. We have Brian says, it is so pervasive that all media is propaganda. Even the TV shows are always positive police shows and military shows. Everyone is propagandized, and once you know, you realize how alone you are. Brian, you're not alone. We're here with you. Just want to let you know that. We're here with you. All right. Seabrass says, I just saw, definitely going to check you out. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Kat Terrell, thank you for the generous super sticker. Much love to you. Much love to you. All right. Okay. I have to get going because, look, there's going to be dip, chips, and all that other stuff. I have to go see my family because it's Christmas Day, duh. But look, for those of you who don't celebrate, because I didn't celebrate for like 20 years, just continue to have a great day and continue to just enjoy, be as joyful as you possibly can because joy is revolutionary. Do not let the elements of this decrepit system get to you. Just fight through it. Try to smile today because they want you to lack joy. Don't give them that power. Do not give power to people who give you negative energy. Don't give power to people who treat you in a vile way. There are some people who may treat you badly, and that's not necessarily them. They may be also suffering through diseases of despair. That's not an excuse to treat you badly, but I'm just letting you know that understanding also needs to happen. And there's compassion and kindness through understanding. And try to be as understanding as you can be towards other people and empathetic. And if somebody is acting out in some way, they may be mad about something. It may not be you. So try to keep a smile on your face and try to do your best to also help others to smile. For those of you that do celebrate or celebrating a different holiday, happy holidays to you and yours for whatever holiday you may be celebrating. I hope that you have as much laughter and food and joy as you possibly can. For those of you that do celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas to all of you. And if you are alone, I at least hope that you had some means to have company via digitally here with you today. And I just want to thank you for tuning in and having this discussion with me, because I actually really wanted to have this discussion with you. So, look, next week is New Year's, and we're embarking on a completely brand new year. And I hope you all are still warm and safe. Look, like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Sip some hot cocoa. Mwah, forehead kisses. Love you.